Okay, here we are, part 3 of analysis and diagnosis. This is the last part of this 3-part lecture. We left off with the analytical model. We're going to go on to the socio-technical systems model. This is based on two-system theory, that every organization has a social system and a technological system. Social system is the network of interpersonal relationships throughout the organization, and the technological system are the tasks, the activities, the tools that are used to get the job of the organization done, complete its services, complete its product. The socio-technical model says that these systems are interrelated and interdependent, so diagnosis focuses on how they interrelate. The emphasis on this particular model is diagnosing feedback or lack of feedback between the two subsystems. The third model is the force field analysis model. This should sound familiar to you. It's a general purpose diagnostic technique. Kurt Lewin says that there's a dynamic balance of forces. They work in opposite directions. You have driving forces that are the pressure for change. You have restraining forces that are the pressure to stay the same and not change. And the result is what he calls a quasi-stationary equilibrium. And that is a state of balance depending on the strength of the driving and the restraining forces. When they are equal, you have the equilibrium. I want you to see the lecture on resistance to change for more details on this force field analysis. This is the model that I have you doing using on your projects. So you should be very familiar with this. There are a lot of things that can go wrong in the diagnosis phase or the diagnostic process for organization development, and the authors call these red flags. The first one is confidentiality, and this gets at the heart of the ethics of organization development, in particular the ethics of the individual OD practitioner. First off, let's talk about the difference between confidentiality and anonymity. Confidentiality is when someone tells you something and you cannot repeat it. Anonymity is when someone tells you something, but you can use the information as long as you do not identify the source. When you are doing your interviews, your surveys, your direct observation, it's very important that you set up the trust relationship for confidentiality. What I tell people is that I use their information in an anonymous aggregate of information from everybody, so that if there's, depending on the number, 3 or more people who have mentioned the same issue, I will bring the issue up. I will not identify who brought the issues up. If they want to tell me something in confidence, however, I tell them to let me know this is confidential, and I will absolutely not use the information. Sometimes people tell me things so that I will understand the dynamics in the organization, the politics, maybe some history. It's for my benefit, but it's not to be repeated to anyone else. So don't slip up and talk about information with other people where others can hear it. Then the second one is called the overdiagnosis. This is when the diagnostic phase goes on too long. You may have heard analysis paralysis is a common phrase. In this, the client can be overwhelmed by the total complexity of the situation. It can also work the other way, where the client asks for more analysis and can be used as a delaying factor that will prevent change from occurring. And it may be conscious or subconscious on the part of the client. Both practitioner and client can be guilty of this. A third red flag is the crisis diagnosis, and that is looking only at immediate crises, things that are on fire, putting out fires. You've heard those terms. It's short-term crises. This is where you fight symptoms. You don't actually implement any long-run change that would be more helpful to the organization in a long-range viewpoint. A fourth is the threatening and overwhelming diagnosis. This can be when the practitioner is too blunt or too strong in giving information to the client, and it weakens the client relationship. It can be very difficult for the client to accept this information because of the way that it's given, and they could reject the entire change program based on that. Then there's always the practitioner's favorite diagnosis, and that is I might impose a favorite diagnosis or a favorite technique on the organization because I'm very comfortable with it, but all it does is distort the problem. I have injected my own biases. And then finally, the diagnosis of symptoms instead of causes. And that's it.